At 75, I thought I'd seen enough betrayal in life. But nothing could have prepared me for the moment my new son-in-law walked into my home, only days after marrying my daughter, holding hands with Notary and demanding my signature. He thought he was about to steal my house. He had no idea I wasn't done fighting yet. My name is Richard Coleman, 75 years old, retired electrician, widower, and father of one daughter, Emily. After my wife, Grace, passed nearly 12 years ago, the house became my sanctuary. Every wall still carried her touch. The curtains she sewed by hand, the rose bushes she planted out front, the old rocking chair on the porch where she spent long evenings knitting. The house wasn't just lumber and nails. It was my life's work. Grace and I bought it when we were young and broke, scraping every penny to make the mortgage. Over the decades, it became more than a home. It was proof of everything we had built together. Emily grew up here. She took her first steps across the kitchen floor, did her homework at the dining table, and walked down the staircase in her prom dress while Grace cried happy tears. As much as this house belonged to me, it was also part of her story. So when Emily introduced me to her boyfriend, Daniel, I wanted to believe he'd respect that. He was polished, too polished for my taste, always in tailored suits, speaking with the kind of confidence that reminded me of a salesman. But Emily's eyes lit up when she talked about him, and after years of watching her navigate heartbreaks, I held my tongue. The wedding was small, rushed even. They planned it in less than 2 months. Why the hurry? I asked once, but Emily brushed it off with a smile. Dad, when you know, you know. Still, something about Daniel's eagerness made my gut tighten. He was always asking little questions about the house. How long I'd owned it, what repairs had been done, whether the deed was in my name alone. I laughed it off at first, but the questions never stopped. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Tuesday morning, sunny and still. I was sipping my coffee on the porch swing when a shiny black SUV pulled up in the driveway. Out stepped Daniel, wearing that same smug smile, and beside him was a woman with a briefcase. She wore a blazer, her hair tied back neatly, professional, no nonsense. "Good morning, Richard," Daniel called, striding up the walk as if he owned the place. "I brought someone important with me. This is Miss Clark, a notary public." My stomach nodded. A notary? For what? Daniel beamed, as if this were a grand favor he was offering. For the house. It just makes sense, doesn't it? You'll sign it over now, while you're healthy, and Emily and I will take care of it moving forward. That way, there's no confusion later. I nearly spilled my coffee. "Excuse me? You've had your time here," he said smoothly. "Think of it as a wedding gift to your daughter. Besides, at your age, managing a property this size can't be easy." Miss Clark opened her briefcase and began arranging documents on the porch table. "Just a few signatures, Mr. Coleman," she said politely, though her eyes flickered with discomfort. I stared at the papers, legal documents with my name typed across them, transferring ownership of my home to Emily and Daniel. My hands tightened around the coffee mug. The nerve of this man, coming here days after the wedding, treating my house like it was already his. "Daniel," I said slowly, "this house is not yours. It's not Emily's. It's mine." He smiled wider, leaning in as though he were soothing a child. "Richard, don't make this harder than it needs to be. You're an old man. You should be thinking about comfort, not property. Sign the papers, and we'll handle the rest." For a moment, I couldn't even find words. My daughter's new husband, who had stood in church and promised to love her, was now trying to rob me blind, right in my own front yard. I looked past him, down the street where the roses Grace planted swayed in the breeze. She had trusted me to protect this home, and in that moment, I made a silent promise. Daniel would not take it from me. Daniel's attempt to corner me on the porch that Tuesday morning didn't end with my refusal. He didn't storm off, and he didn't lose that polished salesman smile either. Instead, he gathered up the unsigned papers, slipped them back into the notary's briefcase, and patted my shoulder like I was a stubborn child. "No worries, Richard," he said smoothly. "You just need a little more time to see reason. We'll revisit this soon." That line chilled me more than any threat could have. It wasn't over, not by a long shot. Emily came by that evening, her cheeks flushed and her voice tinged with frustration. Dad, Daniel told me you were difficult this morning. Why would you refuse something that makes everything easier? Don't you want it to have security? Her words cut deep. I love my daughter more than life itself, but hearing her echo his manipulative tone made my chest ache. Emily, I said gently, you already have security. This house is my home. Yours is with your husband now. Why does he need mine too? She frowned, twisting her wedding ring nervously. It's not like that. He just wants to make sure things are organized. Organized, I repeated. Funny word for theft. Her eyes widened, but she didn't argue. She left quickly, muttering that I was being unreasonable. The following days grew worse. Daniel began showing up without Emily, striding through the house as though it were his. He commented on the furniture. Outdated, we'll replace it. And the garden, too much work, we'll pave it. One afternoon, I came home from the grocery store to find boxes stacked in the living room. Daniel stood there with Brooke, one of Emily's friends, sorting my belongings into piles. What in God's name are you doing? I demanded. Decluttering. Daniel said calmly, You'll thank me. This is no way for a man your age to live. Too many tripping hazards, too much clutter. We're just getting you ready. Ready for what? For the transition, he said matter-of-factly, taping a box shut. I grabbed the box from his hands, my knuckles white. Inside were Grace's recipe cards, yellow with age but still smelling faintly of cinnamon. My throat closed. These are not clutter. These are my wife's memories. Daniel sighed, shaking his head as though I were being silly. Richard, you're holding on to the past. Emily deserves better than to watch you drown in it. Those words stung worse than any insult. Using my daughter's name to justify erasing my life, it was a cruelty I hadn't expected. Later that week, Emily returned with Daniel. They cornered me in the kitchen, paper spread once again across the table. Dad, Emily pleaded, her voice softer this time. You know we love you. This is just practical. You sign now and nothing changes. You still live here. But later, there won't be any messy disputes. Daniel nodded along, his hand resting on her shoulder like a puppeteer with his strings. It's the smart thing to do. I looked at my daughter, her eyes darting nervously to the papers, and I realized she didn't fully understand. Daniel had convinced her this was for her good. He was pulling her strings just as he tried to pull mine. My voice shook, but it was steady enough. Emily, listen to me. If you love this house, you'll protect it with me, not sign it away to him. Her lip trembled, but Daniel cut in sharply. Don't manipulate her, Richard. She's my wife now. It's my job to take care of her. I felt my blood boil. Then take care of her without stealing from me. The kitchen fell silent. Emily grabbed the papers and stuffed them back into Daniel's bag, tears in her eyes. Enough, she whispered. We'll come back later. And they left. I sat at the kitchen table long after they were gone. Grace's recipe card spread before me. My daughter was slipping away, tangled in Daniel's web, and my home was under siege. But as I stared at those cards, a thought took root. Daniel believed my age made me weak. He thought I'd surrender just to keep peace. He was wrong. That night, I couldn't sleep. The kitchen clock ticked louder than usual, each second echoing in my chest like a hammer. I sat in the dark with Grace's recipe card spread out before me, her handwriting glowing faintly under the lamp. It hit me then. Daniel wasn't just after my house. He was after my dignity, my history, everything Grace and I had built together. I replayed every moment since the wedding. Daniel's sly questions about the deed, his rushed ceremony with Emily, the way he marched in with a notary just days later, confident I'd sign without protest. This wasn't sudden, it was planned. My daughter's happiness had been a mask for his ambition. The realization cut deep. Emily had always been my weak spot. Since her mother passed, I'd done everything to protect her. Daniel knew that. He thought he could use her as a weapon against me. That was his mistake. By dawn, my decision was made. I wasn't going to be a victim, not in my own home. The next morning, I walked to the house slowly, touching the walls, the banister, the window frames I'd repair with my own hands. Every creak of the floorboards was a reminder of the life I'd carved here. No man, not even my daughter's husband, was going to take it away. I called an old friend, Thomas Reed. He and I had worked side by side decades ago when I was an electrician. He'd gone on to study law later in life. We'd lost touch after Grace died, but I knew if anyone could guide me, it was him. Richard? His voice on the line was surprised but warm. It's been too long. Too long, I agreed. My throat tightened. Tom, I need help. Legal help. He listened quietly as I explained everything. Daniel's pushy tactics, the notary, Emily's pressure, the papers I'd refused to sign. When I finished, there was a pause. Richard, he said finally, don't blame yourself. Men like Daniel prey on trust and love. But you still hold the power. You own that house outright, correct? Yes. Paid the mortgage off 20 years ago. Then it's yours. He can pressure, manipulate, and bluff, but unless you sign, he has no claim. And if you're worried about future tricks, we can secure it. Trusts, wills, even a life estate. There are ways to make sure the house goes where you want, not where he schemes. Hearing those words lifted a weight off my chest. I hadn't lost yet. Tom, I said slowly, I want to protect the house. Not just for me, but for Emily too. She doesn't see it now, but one day she'll understand. And Daniel, he'll be left with nothing. Thomas chuckled softly. That sounds like a plan, Richard. I'll draw up the paperwork. You just keep your head steady. When I hung up, my hands stopped shaking for the first time in days. Daniel had thought I was an easy mark, a tired old man too weak to fight. But he was wrong. I had experience. I had allies, and above all, I had resolve. That evening, Emily called. Her voice was strained. Dad, why are you making this so hard? Daniel only wants what's best. Don't you trust me? My chest ached at the question. Emily, I said gently, I trust you. I don't trust him. There's a difference. She went quiet, then whispered, You'll regret this, before hanging up. Her words stung, but they also solidified my resolve. If protecting this house meant standing against my daughter for now, so be it. One day, she would see the truth. I went out to the porch, sat in Grace's old rocking chair, and watched the sun sink behind the trees. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt steady. Daniel thought he had the upper hand, but I had just begun to fight. Daniel didn't waste time. By the end of the week, he was back on my porch with Emily in tow. His smile was smooth as ever, but I saw the impatience in his eyes. Richard, he said, setting a folder on the table, we've simplified things. Just one signature this time. Emily and I can handle the rest. I leaned back in my chair, feigning weariness. I'll think about it. He smirked. That's all I asked. But the moment they left, I called Thomas. He came the next morning, his old leather briefcase stuffed with documents. He looked older than the last time I'd seen him, but his mind was as sharp as ever. Here's what we'll do, he said, spreading the papers across my dining table. We'll draft a living trust. You'll remain in full control of the house for as long as you live. When the time comes, the property will transfer where you choose. Daniel won't be able to contest it. I studied the pages, the neat legal language like armor against Daniel's schemes. Emily, I said quietly, I still want her to have this house, but not while he's around. Thomas nodded. Then we'll stipulate conditions. She inherits only if she's no longer married to him, or if he has no legal claim. That way, he can't use her as a backdoor. A strange mix of relief and sorrow washed over me. It hurt to write my daughter's life into legal contingencies, but it was the only way to protect her from the man she'd chosen. Do it, I said firmly. While Thomas drafted, I began my own quiet preparations. I moved Grace's journals, her jewelry box, and the old family photo albums into a locked chest and stored in Thomas's office for safekeeping. If Daniel ever forced his way in, he wouldn't lay a finger on the things that truly mattered. Daniel, meanwhile, grew bolder. He started making suggestions about the house, as if ownership was already his. We'll knock down that wall, Richard, he said one afternoon. Open concept sells better. Another day he commented, "You should think about moving sooner rather than later. Condos are filling fast." I nodded and murmured vague replies, letting him believe I was wavering. Inside, I was recording every word in a small notebook, dates, times, his exact phrasing. If this ever went to court, I'd have a ledger of his manipulation. Emily visited less often. When she did, she looked tired, caught between her loyalty to me and her marriage vows. I wanted to shake her, to make her see the truth, but I held back. She needed to come to it on her own. One evening, Thomas stopped by with a finalized trust. I signed it slowly, my hand steady despite the weight of what it meant. Each stroke of the pen was a wall Daniel could never climb. "It's done," Thomas said, sliding the papers back into his briefcase. "He can huff and puff all he wants, but this house is safe." I leaned back, exhaling for what felt like the first time in weeks. Good. Let him bring his notary, his folders, his fake charm. He'll find the door locked. Still, I wasn't foolish. Daniel wouldn't go down quietly. Men like him never did. I needed more than legal protection. I needed to be ready when the confrontation came. So I rehearsed what I'd say, how I'd reveal the truth. I pictured his smug smile collapsing when he realized his game was over. That night, I sat in Grace's rocking chair on the porch, the trust papers sealed away, and whispered, "We're ready now, love." He thinks he's clever, but he's walking into his own trap. The following week, just as Thomas and I had predicted, Daniel showed up again. Only this time, he wasn't just carrying his smug grin. He brought a realtor with him, a young woman in a blazer, clipboard in hand, stepped onto my porch as though she already owned the place. "Mr. Coleman," she said cheerfully, "I'm here to do a walkthrough and get an appraisal. This house is a gem, so much character." I glanced at Daniel. His grin stretched wider. "Told you, Richard. We're moving forward. Best time to sell is now." I felt my jaw tighten, but I forced a calm smile. "By all means," I said, "take a look." They walked through the house, the realtor jotting notes while Daniel narrated like a tour guide. "We'll knock down this wall, open the kitchen, replace these old floors. The garden? We'll rip out the roses, lay down fresh sod, low maintenance." Each word cut deep. The roses weren't just flowers. They were Grace's pride, her gift to me each spring. But I held my tongue, my anger hidden behind steady eyes. When they left, the realtor promising to get back with figures, Daniel clapped me on the shoulder. "See? Progress. Soon you'll be thanking me for making life easier." He left whistling, believing he'd won another round. What he didn't know was that the trust had already locked him out completely. His appraisal, his notary, his pushy tactics, they were as worthless as the paper they were written on. That evening, Thomas stopped by. I told him about the realtor visit, and he shook his head. "He's overplaying his hand." "Good. Let him dig deeper. He won't see the wall until he slams into it." We went over the documents again. The trust was airtight. The house was mine until the day I died, and when I was gone, it would pass directly to Emily, provided Daniel had no legal claim. If he tried to weasel in, the fallback clause would donate it to charity. Either way, he lost. Over the next few days, I took further steps. I moved family heirlooms, the silver watch my father gave me, Grace's wedding ring, the old photographs, into a safe deposit box at the bank. I wasn't just protecting the house now. I was protecting everything tied to my family's name. Daniel grew impatient. He called me twice a day, his tone less polite each time. "Have you thought it over, Richard? The market won't wait forever. Don't be stubborn." I played along, pretending to hesitate. "Maybe you're right. I just need a little more time." That answer kept him circling, convinced I was close to giving in. In truth, every delay only strengthened my position. One night, Emily came alone. She sat at the kitchen table, her face pale. "Dad, Daniel says you're being impossible. He says if you don't sign soon, he'll take legal steps. Please, just can't you make this easier?" My heart ached seeing her caught in the middle. I reached across the table and took her hand. "Emily, listen to me. This house, it's your mother's legacy. Mine. Yours. But Daniel, he doesn't care about that. He wants money, not memories. One day, you'll see what I see. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't argue. She kissed my cheek and left quietly, caught between love and loyalty. That night, I sat on the porch swing with one of the cigars Daniel had once mocked me for keeping. I didn't light it. Instead, I held it in my hand. Imagine the day I would finally reveal the truth. The day Daniel realized every scheme had crumbled. He thought I was delaying out of fear. In reality, I was waiting for the perfect moment to end his game. It was a Sunday evening when Daniel staged his grand move. Emily had invited me to dinner at their place. A quiet gathering, she said, just family. I knew better. The moment I stepped into their dining room and saw the neat stack of papers beside Daniel's plate, I understood exactly what this night was about. The meal itself was awkward. Emily pushed food around her plate, trying to fill the silence with small talk. Daniel, on the other hand, was unusually chipper, as though he'd already scored the winning point. When the plates were cleared, he finally reached the folder. He slid it across the table toward me with both hands, like he was offering a gift. "Richard," he said smoothly, "this is a clean version. No jargon, no extras. Just one signature, and the house is taken care of. Emily and I can handle everything from here." I didn't touch it. And by everything you mean ownership, control, power. Daniel chuckled. "Don't be dramatic. Think of it as peace of mind. You'll still live there, of course. Nothing changes. Except Emily and I will be able to manage it properly." Properly, I repeated, my voice low. "You mean sell it off piece by piece until nothing of Grace's remains." Emily flinched at her mother's name. Daniel pressed on. "Richard, you're 75. You should be thinking about rest, not responsibility. Sign this, and you can finally relax." I leaned back, folded my arms. "Funny thing about rest, Daniel, I seem to sleep better when I know thieves aren't picking through my house." His smile faltered for the first time. "Thieves? That's harsh." "It's the truth." The room went tense. Emily's eyes darted between us, her hands twisting in her lap. Finally, Daniel slammed his palm on the table, his salesman's mask slipping. "Enough games, Richard. You know this is inevitable. Why drag it out? Everyone knows you can't keep this place forever. Why not make it easy?" I stood slowly, my knees aching but my voice steady. "Because it's not inevitable. Not anymore." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. I laid it on top of his folder. "What's this?" he asked, narrowing his eyes. "Reality," I said. "That's the finalized trust. The house, the land, every asset tied to my name. It's locked. I remain in control until the day I die. After that, Emily inherits, but only if you're nowhere in the picture. If you try to contest it, it goes to charity. Either way, you get nothing." Daniel blinked, stunned. His face turned red as he snatched up the envelope, flipping through the notarized documents. His jaw tightened with every line he read. You went behind our backs," he muttered. "No," I corrected, my voice rising. "I went around your schemes. You came into my house with a notary, as if I'd sign away my life's work like it meant nothing. You tried to turn my own daughter against me. But you forgot one thing, Daniel. I've fought harder battles than you could imagine, and I don't lose my home without a fight." Emily covered her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. "Dad, is this true?" I nodded. "Yes, and it means you'll always have this house, Emily. But Daniel, he never will." Daniel shoved the papers back across the table, his voice shaking with anger. "You'll regret this, old man." I leaned in, locking eyes with him. "The only thing I regret is letting you think you could bully me. You married my daughter for my house. Now you have neither." The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel's face twisted with fury, but he said nothing more. He grabbed his jacket and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. Emily sat frozen, tears streaming down her cheeks. She whispered, "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand gently. "I believe you, but now you do. and you'll see him for what he really is. The house was quiet again, the kind of quiet that carries both peace and sorrow. After the confrontation at Emily's dinner table, Daniel disappeared. No smug visits, no phone calls, no notaries on my porch. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe without the weight of his schemes pressing down on me. But I knew better than to believe it was over. Men like Daniel don't walk away. They regroup. I expected some kind of retaliation. Maybe a lawyer's letter, maybe another realtor showing up uninvited. I prepared myself for it. But days passed without a word. Then one morning, Emily came alone. She stood on the porch, her eyes red, her wedding ring conspicuously absent. "Dad," she whispered, "can I come in?" I nodded, stepping aside. She walked slowly to the living room, her hand brushing the banister, her eyes falling on Grace's roses outside the window. "Daniel's gone," she said finally, her voice trembling. "He left last night, packed his things and walked out. He said if he couldn't have the house. He didn't want the marriage." The words hit me harder than I expected. My chest ached, not from victory, but from seeing the pain on my daughter's face. I had wanted her to see the truth, yes, but I hadn't wanted her heart broken in the process. "I'm sorry, Emily," I said softly. She shook her head. "No, Dad, don't be sorry. You were right all along. He never loved me. He loved what you built, and I was too blind to see it." We sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where Daniel had tried to corner me with his contracts. This time it was just us, father and daughter. She cried quietly, and I let her. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any words. When she finally lifted her head, her eyes were steadier. "Thank you for protecting this house, for protecting me, even when I didn't understand." I squeezed her hand. "That's what parents do, Emily. We fight battles our children can't see." Over the next few weeks, life settled. Emily stayed with me for a while, helping in the garden, cooking meals the way Grace used to. Slowly, I saw the light return to her eyes. Daniel tried once to call her, but she didn't answer. His voice was nothing more than a shadow now. Meanwhile, Thomas finalized the last details of the trust. He handed me a thick envelope with a satisfied smile. "It's airtight, Richard. Even if Daniel crawls back with an army of lawyers, he won't get through this." I placed the envelope in the safe deposit box with Grace's journals and the family photographs. For the first time in months, I felt untouchable. One evening, Emily and I sat on the porch swing. The summer air warm around us. The roses Grace planted swayed gently in the breeze. Emily leaned her head on my shoulder. "You know," she said, "I used to think you were stubborn. Now I see you were strong. Daniel never stood a chance against you." I chuckled, the sound rumbling in my chest. "Your mother always said I fought hardest when I was cornered." She was right. We watched the sky turn shades of orange and purple, and for once, the future didn't feel heavy. The house was safe. My daughter was free, and my wife's memory was honored. That night, I wrote in Grace's journal, "He came for the house, but left with nothing. Emily is home again, and for the first time, I feel peace." I closed the journal, set it on the shelf, and let the silence of the house wrap around me, not as loneliness, but as comfort. Weeks turned into months, and for the first time in a long while, the house felt alive again, not haunted by Daniel's threats or weighed down by paperwork, but alive, filled with the scent of roses and the sound of Emily's laughter drifting from the kitchen. She had moved back home temporarily, and though I knew it wasn't forever, having her there healed something in me I didn't realize was broken. Life found a rhythm. We spent mornings tending to Grace's garden, afternoons cooking together, and evenings on the porch swing. Emily had a softness in her eyes now, the kind that comes after surviving heartbreak and realizing you're stronger than you thought. One evening, as we shelled peas on the porch, she asked, "Dad, do you ever regret it, standing up to him the way you did?" I thought for a long moment before answering. "No, I regret that you were hurt, yes. But if I'd signed those papers, I would have lost everything. Your mother's memory, our home, and the respect I have for myself. And I think, eventually, I would have lost you too." She nodded, her lips trembling. You didn't just save the house. You saved me. Her words struck me deep, and for the first time in a while, I let myself feel proud, not for outsmarting Daniel, but for holding on to the strength Grace had always seen in me. A few weeks later, I received a letter in the mail. Daniel's name was scribbled across the return address. My heart skipped, but when I opened it, all I found was one line scrawled in messy ink. You ruined everything. I folded the letter neatly and dropped it into the trash. He was right, but not in the way he thought. He'd ruined himself. I had simply refused to hand him the tools to do it faster. Meanwhile, Emily started rebuilding her life. She found work at the local library, a place she'd always loved as a teenager. She came home with stories about children's reading hours and neighbors who stopped to check out novels. Slowly, she was reclaiming herself. I, too, found new purpose. With Thomas's help, I started a small scholarship fund in Grace's name. Money from my savings set aside for young electricians in training. I figured if I could keep one young man or woman from falling into the traps of greed and shortcuts, then maybe my story would leave something good behind. On the day the first recipient came to thank me, a nervous boy with calloused hands and hopeful eyes, I felt Grace's presence more strongly than ever. I could almost hear her whisper, "You did good, Richard." That night, I lit the last cigar from the box Daniel once pushed in front of me, trying to coax my signature. I sat on the porch swing, smoke curling into the twilight, and smiled. The cigar didn't taste like surrender. It tasted like victory. Emily joined me, curling up with a blanket. "You look happy," she said. "I am," I answered, not because I went against him, but because we didn't lose what mattered. We watched the stars blink awake, the house standing strong behind us, the roses swaying gently in the evening breeze. For the first time in years, I wasn't just defending my life. I was living it.